Do we plan in Agile? Absolutely yes. Oftentimes, when I talk to individuals about Agile, the question about planning comes up. Do you plan in Agile? And the answer is true. With anything else, you need to know where you're going. You need to know your destination, the end goal. For example, a couple of years back, I had a trip to India. Initially, when I get to India, there's a person over there that comes and pick me up from our partners. I gave them the itinerary in terms of date and time to pick me up. Now, I had mistakenly given them the wrong date and time. So what happens was that I show up a day earlier. And this is when you fly into India. I mean, I fly in like late at night in India or early morning India. When I got there, it was late at night and nobody had to pick me up. So it's important that we forecast, important that we understand when we get to certain things. So in the example, it was important that I provide the right information so that the person that's picking me up knows when I'm there. Because I gave the wrong information, I got there a day early. And I was at the airport, nobody picked me up. So I had to do some adjustments. And I got lucky because it just happened that that company that I was working with had a lot of clients flying in. So when they saw me looking around, they asked if I was, looking for, XYZ company, and I said yes. And I got to the hotel adjusted for me, and I just gave the wrong information. So there is a destination, i.e. India, and there is a forecast as to when I'll arrive. So that's important. It's important for us to know, even in Agile, when things are going to get done. Are we going to be early? Are we going to be late? Those informations are crucial. So why is it important for us to know the plan and the forecast? Why is it important for sales to know when things will be done? Is your planning, is your forecasting, are all those only internal? The whole notion of we'll let you know when we're done isn't right. It's not real. It doesn't work. You still have to provide information. You still have to provide a forecast. So we're not traditional in a sense that, hey, we have a date and here's the deadline, right? And we have to go do this dev march towards that deadline. That's waterfall. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that we need to provide some sort of a forecast to the business. So for the sales organization, for the sales department, the reason why they want to know is so that they can plan. They can plan when to sell stuff, when certain feature becomes available. Because it's crucial for them when they have a conversations with our clients, with potential clients, as to what feature will be coming up. So that's for sales. Sales need that. Now, it is also important that sometimes because it's a growing company, sales need to know how many people to hire. Depending on the feature that's become available, it may require a lot more people to sell it. And there might be a whole sales strategy around it. So sales do need to know this information. Who else needs to know? Marketing. Marketing needs to market the product. So they also need to know when features are coming because they have to provide the information on the feature that they're going to market. The stakeholders, the executives, the sponsors, they pay development a lot of money to build something. It would be in their best interest to know what's coming, right? You would assume that they want to know. You would assume that, hey, if I pay you I want to know what I'm getting out. So they should be involved in knowing what's coming, in the plan, in the forecast, in when it's available, in whether it's building the right thing or the wrong thing. They should have all this information. The support team needs to know too. What feature are they going to support? How are they going to support the feature? So for them, it is also important to know what a forecast is, what the plan is. So all these things happen. They could happen just like in the waterfall days, where they happen when product is done and you have this massive training of this download of information to all of them, or you can do it in small chunks. If we look at traditionally, development gets done. Hey, it's done, it's ready. Here's the product. You can go do what you need to do. Sales need lead time. It takes them 6 months, for example, maybe 3 months, 60, 90 days to ramp up. Support, same thing. Marketing, same thing. The amount of time taken to come together with a marketing plans and things like that, they're all lead time that is needed. So if you wait, what happens is that you have this lead time. So you're losing. Your cost of delay is that the product is done, is sitting in there for 60, 90 days before we get to a client. That's valuable time. Time is money. The faster we can get it to the hands of a client, the better feedback we get. Guess what? The faster we get money. The better we bring value to the client, the faster we bring value to the client, the faster we get feedback, and it helps us ensure that the business gets its ROI back. So instead of a very traditional way of waiting 6 months, 9 months, a year for a product to be done, and then you tack on another 6 months to do everything else, do it differently. So today we have all this information available to us by running Agile, by running it in this fast iterative loopback. We're decreasing time that it takes for us to provide valuable features to our clients. It also reduces the time that is needed. If you release, for example, 2-3 features each time, every 2 weeks, for example, if there's only 2 features, there is only 2 things that marketing has to worry about. That's not a big bang effort. There doesn't need a lot of things that needs to be going around it, right? There's just continuously incremental learning for the support staff, for the sales. It helps them build up. Now, I do understand, I do get it, where there is sales, bundle effort that goes on. There is marketing thing that goes on, like, hey, you want this big rollout. You can still all do that thing. You can still do all those things, when you're running iterative, when you're running Agile. Well, it doesn't mean that doesn't exist, but it also means that it is important for us to provide the information from development side to let them know when things is expected, when things will be happening, when things will be delivered. Even if we deliver everything in 2 weeks chunk, giving them this, oh, you get it in this 2 weeks, that's it. That doesn't work, right? You got to help provide additional information as to what we call a forecast, a plan. For developers, oftentimes I hear developers struggle that they say, hey, Agile, we don't need to forecast. We know when things will be done. We got to do it. We'll get things completed. We don't need to tell anybody else. We don't need to forecast down the road. It's too far down the road. That's not true. You still need to know where you're going. You need to know where the destination is. Number one, knowing the destination. Number two, you got to come up with a forecast in terms of what will be done, what is available, because the business is relying on you. Yes, it is not a death march. We don't want a death march, but we still need to forecast. It's a rough forecast. And what we have found with experience is that the gut feel forecast that we do is actually more accurate than the traditional breakdown hours, waterfall, Microsoft project way of doing things. Those are not accurate. We've got more accurate by doing this gut feel forecast, because as a human, it's in our human nature to easily forecast those things. Take for example, you get in the car, for example, I had a trip to the zoo. I punch it into my GPS. It tells me how long it is, what distance it is, what time I'll get there. Am I going to get it exactly at that time as to when I punch it in before I drive? It depends. It depends on whether if there's traffic, if there is construction, all those come in. Well, but I still do plan, right? I plan on getting there by a certain time. I plan on my route that I'm going to take. I plan on lunch, for example, where to break for lunch. Maybe I don't plan for lunch. Maybe, whenever I get hungry. But that's okay. But I still plan on getting there by a certain time period. If you're alone, that's great. If you're working by yourself, that's awesome. You don't need to tell anybody else. But we work in teams. We work in a business. So you need to tell people. So we need to tell people. For example, I need to tell my wife when I plan to leave, when I plan to get there. I need to tell my kids. So when you have other people that you're working with or part of your team, you need to provide the information, because you can work as one. We can work as a team to arrive at your destination, to arrive and reach your goal. So even for developers, we still need to plan, we still need to forecast. Again, we're not saying the traditional waterfall that much. When things change, guess what? We accept the change and we adapt to the change. And that's what's important, right? We iterate to it, we reflect upon it, and then we improve upon it. Halfway through the trip to the zoo, for example, if my car breaks down, you adjust to it. It may be that we on the way there something happens and we're gonna cancel the trip, and that's okay. But we had that plan, we had that forecast up front. You gotta know your destination. You gotta know what to expect somehow. Okay. So short distance is always easy. So for example, we say, hey, 2 weeks time frame, that's easy. But if I'm planning a trip to drive or even to fly from Raleigh, North Carolina, all the way to Singapore, for example, planning a trip, planning what to bring, that's all planning, that's all forecasting. What time you get there. You don't know what's going to happen when you get there. Roughly, you forecast what's going to happen. Okay, so as developers, it is also important that you understand the forecast. And it's even more critical for developers because I think you have control into what's happening. You can provide the information to the business, allow the business to also work with you. So what's available? What kind of, we know that we need to do that. What's available for us today? What do we work with? What are the tools that we have today? So today we have three different things, right? We have roadmap planning, and that's high level planning. And that is looking at forecasting 4 quarters worth of work. It's a rolling plan. You always look out 4 quarters each time we meet. So for Dude Solutions, each time we meet, we are on a monthly cadence. Every time we meet, we ensure that we look at the roadmap backlog, roadmap board to ensure that it's right for the next 4 quarters. We add more stuff, we adjust as we go. So number 1 is roadmap planning. So that's looking at 4 quarters. It's high level. So for roadmap, anything that is further out, just like everything else, just like the fog, it's so far out that things will change, and then things can change. The business may come back and say, hey, we're going to change direction. We're going to go after a different market. So that does happen. Okay, so roadmap is something that it's important. It also helps business create this strategy, allows other departments to know where we're headed. Okay. Number 2 is PSI planning. So PSI planning is potentially shippable increments. So in this planning, we look out 6 sprints, which is about 1 quarter worth of work. So again, 6 sprints. Now this is much better than our roadmap, which is further out, which is 4 quarters, right? So 6 sprints, this is something that's closer to us. That's close enough to know that, hey, are things going to happen? When are things going to happen? This is also where the team members, the developers, get a chance to look at it and do a little bit more breakdown. At the roadmap level, we understand that it is so far out that there's not enough information for us to do enough breakdowns. In PSI, you do. Now, we're not talking about refinement here. We're not talking about providing sizing and things like that, but it's a gut feel of breaking down the big chunk of work. So if you look at it, roadmap is big chunk of work. Epic level, team levels is high level chunk. It's a one big sticky for us in development. And then we take that and say, well, now let's break that into smaller pieces. These small pieces then become what we call stories that we can work on. Now at PSI, we look out 6 sprints, right? So what does 6 sprints mean? 6 sprints means this, is that sprints number 6 is so far away. It's not as far as your roadmap, but it's far enough that things can still happen, and we haven't gotten around on discussing the full details yet. So it's a rough guess. As things get closer, for example, sprint number 1 that's closest to us right now, we know exactly what we're building. We know what is needed for it. For development, we usually have about 3 sprints worth of work that is being refined, being discussed, and talk about how to do the work. So sprint number 1, 2, and 3 that is closest, or in the PSI board that we have, it is the one that's floating to the top. So the top 3 usually are the ones that has been refined. We kind of know what they are, and they don't change as much usually. 4, 5, and 6, yeah, they may change, but it knows the direction. Now that's what's coming up, right? So for PSI planning, we do this again on a cadence of once a month. Every time we meet, we break down work. So works get, the first time you meet, you try to break down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roughly. 1, 2, and 3 is the one that we know the most. The next time we meet, maybe 3 and 4, and things start rolling. The plans start moving along, right? Things gets done, pops up from the top, almost like a queue, right? Things come in at the bottom, it goes all the way to the top, and it goes out, right? So in that flows happen. So when our stuff known, when we have better information. So I would say this: number 1, is it in the roadmap? If it's in the roadmap, cool. The business has kind of have a commitment to doing certain things. So for sales folks, sales that's out there, marketing, if you're following this, if you are watching the PSI board, the roadmap board, that's kind of where you would know. Okay, where are they? Are they on the roadmap? Are they on the PSI? So once you get a PSI, guess what? It's coming in a quarter. So what's your lead time? Sales, what's your lead time? Marketing. So get ready for it. Now, when is it solid? I would say probably when it reach 3 sprints out. So 3 sprints out is about 6 weeks out. So roughly about a month and a half out, it's pretty sure that we're gonna do it. We're gonna execute on those things, unless something drastically change, and it may change. But what's the nice thing is that if it does change, you would know, because it's all available right on our board and it's transparent. So you have this PSI board that's available, and then of course you got sprint planning. Sprint planning is about what's happening in these 2 weeks, whether it's gonna be executed or not. And at the end of it, you have sprint review that we then provide this information as to whether we did indeed finish the feature. So you have these 3 levels of information that's available to you. So the other one that most often people forget on is the daily stand-up. And that's critical for developers, because the daily stand-up is the daily plans. What are we going to work on today? How are we going to work on, what things are we going to work on, and how we're going to get the team working together as one into achieving what we have planned to do for the sprint. So daily stand-up is critical, and that's important as well. So we talk about what's available and where to get all this information. So number one, we have physical boards available in the space. Okay, so we have the roadmap that's available. It's you walk in the space, you see it. PSI board is available. You see it, you walk in, it's right there. The Springboard is also physically available. You can see it as well. Some of this information is available digitally, online. But I would say, hey, the physical board is probably the best one to look at. If you have questions about what's on the board or what's available, what's coming, who do you ask? The product owner. The product owner is usually the one that's closest to it. Other than that, you have the product managers that you're going to talk to. And if you are much higher level up for stakeholders, for example, you can talk to, Director of Product Management, for example, or the VP of Product Management. And they will have all this information available for you as well. So there are people you can reach out to. Now, if you have things that, for example, you have, hey, I've talked to a client, they talk about this feature. Is this feature available? Are we going to work on this? Talk to the product owner. Find out who the product owner is. Go talk to them. Email them. Ask them questions. They are available to provide those information that is needed. If all else fails, if it's not that being worked on directly, for example, it may not be on the roadmap because the business doesn't deem it important enough. If it's not on there, then okay, cool. When it's going to be on the roadmap, find out who you talk to get those things onto the roadmap. How to get things onto the roadmap, right? So those are the ways, those are things that's available to you today. You can talk to product owners, product managers. Again, the tools available, walk into the space. The product owners is also in the space and they're more than happy to talk to you. Another way to get information is through our Agile ceremonies that we have in play. When we have roadmap planning, out of that roadmap planning, we have information. When we do PSI planning, out of that we have information. And not only that, sprint review. Come to the sprint review. At sprint review, you would hear information as to whether things happen or not. Whether we are on track, whether we are ahead of schedule, whether things change. You get a chance to see that. And when is that available? That's every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks you have all this information coming at you. So imagine knowing that, hey, we know that we're going to work on inventory and that's coming in, 4 quarters from now. And you pay attention to the ceremonies, you pay attention to the roadmap, you see it progressing. It's 3 quarters away. Now it's 2 quarters away. Now it's on the PSI board. Whoa, now things are broken down. Now I know kind of what's in inventory, what to expect in inventory. 6 sprints away, 4 sprints away. I can now, in marketing, I can now start writing stuff up because I know what those information are. 3 sprints out. Sales can start providing strategies, can start work on strategies. And guess what? If things happen earlier, you're early. You have the information and you can adjust. And if it happens on time, you're ready. You're ready to sell. You're ready to market. You're ready to support. That reduces the cost of delay to getting those features to our client. We provide value to the client faster that way by reducing the delay of getting it to the client. So we talk about roadmap plan, PSI plan, sprint plan. Those are checkpoints. If you look at them as checkpoints to provide you the information that you needed. You as in sales, you as in marketing, you as in stakeholders, you as in developer too, as to are we on track? Are we on the right path? Are we solving the right problems? Use those information. Those are checkpoints. Similar to how, if you were to go pick up a friend from the airport, your friend calls you up, email you, here's my itinerary, and I'm going to reach Raleigh at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're working, you plan to leave maybe an hour before to go pick this friend up. You could do one or two things. You could just say, hey, I got information up front. My friend tells me, that's when the plane's going to arrive. I'm just going to go at that time to pick them up. Or you could also use tools that provide you better feedback. Real-time information, for example. Information that's available, on RDU website, for example. Those information helps you determine when you need to leave. You don't have to leave certain time. Maybe there's a delay. That way you don't have to leave too early. Or the plane's early. You get there earlier. The more information you have, the better you are at making decisions. So that feedback is important. So we have all this mechanism in place. We have roadmap in place. We have PSI in place. All those helps you make this decision. I hope that has been informational for you. And if you have any further questions, please leave me a comment, or you can come email me, come see me in the Agile space at Build Solutions, or ask one of our Agile coaches and also part owners. Feel free to ask those questions. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions.